Shana Tova. I greet you this morning with the fervent hope that this new year will be a good one for you, for us, for the Jewish people, and for all of humanity. Our greeting, as you know, is for a good new year, a Shana Tova, not a happy new year. We leave the happy for January 1st. At this liminal moment, a holy transition from what ends to what begins, from the old to the new. Today, our hope is for what our lives require. We seek goodness, meaning, health, contentment, whether the coming days will be happy or sad. And honestly, if emotions are to be our measure right now as time moves forward, I feel this to be a sad new year. A sad new year. I am sad that COVID's lingering threat prevents more of us from being together in this room. I am sad that we were on our path out of the pandemic and had to backtrack. I am sad that COVID is morphing into an endemic and that COVID careful is going to be the path we must learn to walk. Sadly, I wonder if this is what it felt like to live in biblical times. People all over the world suffer from nature's wrath, blazing fires, devastating earthquakes, hurricanes and flooding, illness affecting millions. People suffer the results of humanity's failings too, not only nature, widespread poverty and despair, insecurity and indignity. It's Rosh HaShanah. This is not the holiday when we spill wine from our Seder Kiddush cup to symbolize all that plagues us and humanity. These are troubles ever present around the globe. Yet at this moment, amidst all the disruption the COVID pandemic continues to cause, I feel a deep sadness about all that is and should not be. I am sad that more pushes us apart than pulls us together as Americans and as Jews. I am sad that groups we may associate with, and some of our families too, divide rather than come together. I am sad that we emphasize our differences more than we appreciate our similarities. In other words, I am sad that all too often we can't agreeably disagree. I am sad that the darker side of human nature is openly, wantonly, and all too comfortably on display throughout our toxic and intoxicating social media culture, our public discourse, and our society at large. I am sad that too often a lack of honesty and integrity, the undermining of truth and trust, diminish allegiance to country and community. I am sad when selfish preferences masquerade as rights, when responsibility toward others is not seen as a civic duty. I am sad that anti-Semitism is rampant and the hypocrites who spew it so animated. I am sad that misrepresenting Zionism and questioning Israel's right to exist are the in vogue, politically correct posture. If emotions are to be our measure, I feel an inner sadness as this new year begins. To describe my mood, I teach this comment on a verse in today's Rosh HaShanah Torah reading. It is an insight from the 19th century, a Polish rabbi named Menachem Mendel of Dworki. About the story we read earlier, he reminds us, after Abraham sends away Hagar and her son Ishmael because Sarah is jealous of them, we learn that without enough water, Hagar worries for her son's life. And then we read, God heard the cry of the boy. And Rabbi Mendel explains the verse this way. He says, nothing in the preceding verses indicates that Ishmael cried out. No, it was a soundless cry, what I call an inner sadness. It was a soundless cry, and God heard it. On another occasion, Rabbi Mendel discussed the verse in the Torah which tells about Pharaoh's daughter when she rescues Moses from the river. In that scene we read, when she opened the basket, she saw that it was a child, a boy crying. What we should expect to be told, says Rabbi Mendel, is that she heard the child Moses crying, not that she saw him crying, but the child was crying inside himself. Another example of inner sadness, which is why later Pharaoh's daughter declares, this is one of the Hebrews' children. Moses' cry reflects his inner sadness. And here's Rabbi Mendel's conclusion that spoke to me. He says, all of this is a Jewish kind of crying. The Jewish kind of crying. We are an introspective and reflective people. Throughout history, we take in what the world foists upon us. With enduring strength, we give back to the world the moral lessons of our experience and the wisdom of our ideas. And this describes my mood as the new year begins. So don't worry. It's not my intention to depress you this morning, if I haven't already. I do want to think out loud with you. I want to think about human nature, about the nature of this moment in time, and about our vision and ability to transform inner sadness into goodness. Let me begin with this insight of the Talmud. In establishing the patterns of Jewish prayer and rituals, the rabbis teach. One recites a blessing for the bad, just as one does for the good. At a time of distress, we don't give up hope. As well, one recites a blessing for the good, just as one recites for the bad. At a time of contentment, we seek perspective. Really, they're bold statements. So the rabbis have to offer some examples. So for example, if one's land floods, though at the time a bad circumstance to confront, perhaps benefit will come from the sediment enhancing the quality of the soil. Bad for now, hopefully better later. Or perhaps you find a valuable object. At the time, a good situation to be in. But if the original owner claims his lost item, you will have to give it back. Good for now, possibly not good for long. A metaphor for many of our lives' experiences. Bad times give way to better days. Good times are fleeting, to be savored while they last. In life, it is our blessing, it is our burden, and it is our goal to seek significance. We want to find meaning in the brevity, variety, and mystery of everything we experience. And these past 18 months were no exception. Consider everything we did. Remember everything you did. Reflect on all you still may be doing to cope, to help, to make something good for yourself and for others during this most unusual time in our lives. Unsure and unsettled, we found new and imaginative ways to fill our days with purpose and productivity. We made use, as we are making use, of God's gifts, the gifts of human ingenuity and resilience. We responded to a unique challenge with our best virtues, compassion and caring, as we confronted loss and distress, creativity and conviction as we worked, celebrated, and gathered. When lonely, we appreciated hearing from others. When worried, we sought hope. When wearied, we tried new things. What are human beings? Ask the Psalms of God, that you have been mindful of them. Humanity, that you take note of them. You have made human beings a little less than divine, adorned them with glory and majesty. You have made human beings master of your handiwork, laying the world at their feet. The author of this psalm is overcome with the world's beauty. Yet of all the magnificent things in the world, for this poet, nothing compares to the wonder of human beings. Master of God's handiwork, blessed with intelligence, emotion, and conscience, we can reach down to raise up our circumstances out of most any abyss. Or, and it's a big or, in alphabetical order I will recite, because in the religious poetry of the high holidays, alphabetic lists symbolize the totality of our good or bad capacities. So in alphabetical order, we can abuse, berate, cheat, destroy, exploit, fool, gloat, hate, insult, justify, knock, lie, mock, negate, offend, persecute, quarrel, ruin, steal, troll, undermine, violate, wreck, be xenophobic, yell, and be zealots. Each of these acts, all together and all too often, reveal the dark side of human nature. All too often they overwhelm our better instincts and the potential of our humanity. They always have. In every generation, all too much on display currently, the nastiness of these negative traits, when displayed between people and groups, contributes to my inner sadness. But my dear friends, it does not have to be this way. Let me tell you about three of many things that happened 18 months ago on March 13, 2020. It was a Friday, so we'll put aside all of the Friday the 13th superstitions, although that date means, did you know this, that it was National Blame Someone Else Day. Not quite a Hallmark holiday, but a day established in 1982 to encourage individuals to pawn off their mistakes or perhaps their mishaps on someone else or something else. It's a tempting theme, but I'll put it aside for now. 18 months ago, March 13, 2020, here at Bethel, we gathered for what would be our last Shabbat evening service before we closed. No one knew what lay ahead. In fits and starts around the country, that's the date. Folks headed home and into seclusion. Meanwhile, in Washington, D.C., all 16 fragments of the Dead Sea Scrolls on display at the Museum of the Bible were declared cunning forgeries. Considered some of the museum's most valuable items, described as the oldest known surviving copies of the Hebrew Bible, they were fakes. Copies made of aged leather and modern ink. The quality of these forgeries was so good, some of the world's leading scroll scholars were duped. All the while, north from here in Berkeley, California, a scientist named Jennifer Doudna couldn't sleep. It was 2 a.m. in the pre-dawn hours of March 13th. She sensed her world, our world, was about to change. Walter Isaacson tells the story. Dr. Doudna led a March 13th meeting of her colleagues. She stood in front of the room and also via Zoom to rally 50 researchers with an intensity she usually kept masked by a calm facade. This is not something academics typically do, she told her peers. We need to step up. Jennifer Doudna is recognized for her lead role in the genetic research that ultimately produced the 2 mRNA COVID vaccines. Let's bring this together. Living amidst a pandemic, as we and everyone closed, the two sides of human nature were present on March 13th as they are every day. In a museum, thieves were found to have perpetrated a scam. In a laboratory, scientists started a journey toward healing. In our homes, with our relatives and friends and by ourselves, you and I looked at our unexpected reality and had to decide what to do. While there will always be bad actors among us and weak moments for us all, I refuse to live in the darkness of humanity's baser inclinations. In the world I inhabit, I choose to emphasize possibility, potential, and the promise to be present in people's best efforts. The Talmudic sage Rabbi Elazar reflects this choice. Knowing there would be bad acts among human beings in the world, God chose to see and promote the good of creation. Even one righteous person would justify the creation of the entire world, Rabbi Elazar teaches. In the mythology and wonder of God's creation, wherever possible in life and in the world, our purpose is to see and do the good. But I also know the saddest verse in all of Torah. It comes after humanity's creation in the stories of Genesis. There has been murder, corruption, and hurt, after which we read, and the eternal God regretted making human beings on earth, and God's heart was sad. We recognize the source of God's inner sadness. People exhibiting their inclination to evil, their Yetzer Hara, rather their inclination to good, their Yetzer HaTov. Yet we need to know this. For God's image in Genesis, and for so many voices in Jewish tradition, sadness is a pause on the way to compassion. Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi teaches, if one does not have a broken and contrite heart, one cannot be said to have a heart at all. The remedy for my inner sadness, and any you may also feel, the remedy lies in this truth. If I don't want my inner sadness to endure, I must turn it into compassion and kind-heartedness. I need to create an alternate reality, not of facts, but of ideals. An alternate reality of hopes and of personal ethics, a way to manage my existence in the real world with a vision of a better world. A source of inspiration, motivation, and retort to all I see that troubles me. for all that crowds my heart and soul with painful images and disturbing information. I must know that stuff, but I also feel somewhat helpless to fix it. I need to care for my soul in order to care about my world. I need to withdraw in order to engage. I need to search for meaning in order to contribute something meaningful to others. As individuals, as a community, you and I, we know we are blessed in the condition of our lives. Aware of our people's history, aware of all that plagues people around the world today, we live as the fortunate few. I wonder if our relative comfort separates us from the deeper experiences of humanity. Human history, including life around the globe today, finds people searching for understanding, for security, for personal purpose, or just for simple survival. Life's depth comes from standing vulnerable to the natural and human-made ill winds that blow around the world. We need a way, I need a way, I ask you to find with me a way to take hold of our humanity, to connect us to others' realities, to allow life's precariousness to motivate joy and gratitude, compassion and kindness. What I seek is to grow through my comfort toward a recognition of the true earnestness and intensity of life. So I'm going to propose something unusual. An additional reason for doing mitzvot. An additional reason for consciously choosing acts of Jewish celebration and rites of ritual demonstration. Doing mitzvot may just be a way to bring into our lives a depth of purpose, to focus on what it means to care for ourselves and others, to focus on the patterns and needs of our lives, to connect us to the realities of human experience within our group and beyond our own, to glean wisdom of the ages, urgently necessary today. We may not always be able to control our moods. Emotions well within us. We can decide how to respond to what we feel. When sad, we can find motivation in the memory of better days. Of soul and conscience, you and I can counter meanness when we encounter it. We can be good when others are not. We can model decency where it is lacking. Remember the psalm, we are but a little lower than the divine. It's up to us. There are those who will use their ingenuity to perpetrate fraud, to hurt. There are also those who will use their talents to make things better, to assist. Each of us can do the same. We can harm or we can help. We can refuse to give credence to public personalities whose efforts and belligerence are unworthy of our attention. We can refuse to make space in our minds for people whose words and intentions are rude. In this new year, we can shine the light of our ideals onto the dark places of human experience. The remedy for my inner sadness is personal resolve, care and compassion, honesty and integrity, generosity and activity on behalf of others by whatever means we can. And spiritually, by living in sacred time and doing sacred deeds, establishing an alternate reality of ideals and personal ethics, by embracing daily, weekly, or periodic moments of mitzvah, of connection, of faith, of hope, and of love. Shana Tova. May we rejoice and reflect as we begin a new phase of living and striving. May we return to God by improving the quality and character of our deeds. It is all ours to see. It is all ours to do. To transform inner sadness into goodness. And in the end, in an alternate reality, to declare 5,782 to be a good and happy new year.